Welcome into the New Orleans Saints podcast. You'll hear from players, coaches, broadcasters, and writers that cover the NFL on a daily basis. The New Orleans Saints podcast starts right now. Here's your host, Erin Summers.
Welcome into the New Orleans Saints podcast. I'm Erin Summers alongside John DeShazier. We've just wrapped up training camp day number 6, day 2 in pads. Things are definitely starting to pick up a little bit as far as the intensity goes. Some of the battles we're seeing on the field. I think after this practice, at least, it seemed like the defense won this round.
I wouldn't say seemed like. The defense won. I think Clint Kubiak, offensive coordinator, called it a character-building day for the offense, and that's just a nice way of saying that you got your gluteus maximus kicked, because that's what happened. The defense had really good team periods, especially in terms of stopping the run. Didn't see any chunk plays by the offense as we've seen the previous days. So I thought it was a really good day for the defense, and it got really, really chippy today. No punches were thrown, but we saw it get really feisty. It was Carl Granderson beat a block on the reverse, and he knocks down Rashid Shaheed, and Rashid Shaheed doesn't like it. He gets up and throws the football at him. We also saw a great stiff arm on a run play by Jordan Mims to get a defender on the ground. And then we saw the offense was able to turn that aggression against the defense on one play. A nice screen pass, Derek Carr to Alvin Kamara, which would have been a great chunk play. Alvin found the seam. So we saw a couple of flash plays from the offense, but overall, defensively, starting with Chase Young at the top. Chase Young had a day. It's going to get better for him because he's obviously got to get back in football shape, and he's got to get accustomed to carrying his pads again and those kinds of things. But he looked really phenomenal out there, and that's not a knock against Tali Fuaga, whose name I'm screwing up all up. Sorry, Miss Fuaga family. They went one-on-one, and he beat him a couple times. But, I mean, Chase Young is a grown man, and he looks the part. He looks every bit the part that the Saints thought they were going to get when they signed him as a free agent. So hopefully he can stay healthy and continue on that trajectory, because he looks phenomenal, and he looked phenomenal today in the snap that he got.
Yeah, 6'5", 265 pounds, and he has every bit of that, just pure strength and athleticism coming off the line there. I think head coach Dennis Allen said yesterday that he's still got to get some technique things down a little bit, and they're working through maybe just how the Saints teach things, what they like from their linemen. But I think that that's going to be a really interesting battle, because you have Carl Granderson, who has flashed at times during camp, and Cam Jordan, who had a down year last year due to some injuries that he was dealing with. Tano Passanel is hurt, so Peyton Turner is getting some more reps at the second team. I don't know. It just seems like there's a lot of potential there on the line, and Chase Young is making a claim to maybe one of those starting spots.
Yeah, it's a great dilemma to have, because even if he doesn't start, they're going to rotate snaps, and he's going to play a lot of snaps. And there will be snaps where they might have 4 defensive ends on the field at the same time in their NASCAR package, and he obviously will be one of those guys. Cam Jordan could slide inside. Carl Granderson, we've seen him work some inside. We know Peyton Turner can probably work some inside. So they'll want to get all those guys on the field at the same time sometimes. But if you're rotating them at defensive end, that's going to be a great thing, because now you're going to have 60, 70 snaps in a game, and offensive tackles are going to have to deal with fresh defensive linemen who have talent, who will provide a variety of ways of attacking and rushing the passer. So it's going to keep offensive tackles on their toes, and it'll be great for the defense, because none of those guys should wear down, because you've got a good rotation. Hopefully, they can stay healthy. That's always the main thing. But if they can stay healthy, it's going to be a really good rotation at defensive end.
Yeah, Turner did shift inside a little bit today, so he is working in on that role as well. And to your point about tiring out the offensive line, usually your offensive linemen are in for the entire game. if the Saints are able to rotate in players on that defensive line, then they're going to be a lot more fresh, a lot quicker than maybe the opposing offensive line that they're going after.
It's going to be difficult to keep those guys out. Chase Young can bull rush. We know that Carl Granderson is able to transition speed to power. We've seen Cam Jordan do that throughout his career. Tano Passanio, when he's playing, he can do that. Peyton Turner is a guy who we've seen the flashes when he has played. He has to stay healthy. If he's on the field, they've got a formidable defensive end rotation that they can really do some work with. And again, Cam Jordan can slide inside. We saw him do that a couple of times, a couple of snaps today, one-on-one, when they were going through drills, him against Cesar Ruiz at right guard. So they have guys who have the capability of not just flipping from right defensive end to left defensive end, but also to slide inside and play defensive tackle. So it's a great dilemma to have.
You mentioned that chunk play by Alvin Kamara as he broke down the right sideline. I had it down as maybe like 45 yards. I mean, he really did just kind of burst through the line. Working behind him, Jamal Williams, and then Jordan Mims has really stood out, getting extra reps because of Kendre Miller's injury. But also, I mean, he looks good. He looks like he knows the scheme, what he's doing, and he has been a formidable option for them. Stood out a couple times.
Well, one guy gets injured and another guy takes advantage of it. You know, Kendre Miller is out, and here Jordan Mims has this opportunity. And he showed it today, even on the play where it looked like it might have been a tackle, but he extends the stiff arm, and he basically pulverizes the defender, you know, to the oohs and ahs of his teammates. And those are the kinds of plays that catches coaches' attention. They say, you know what, this guy showed me something. And if he continues to show that, then it's going to be impossible to keep him off the field. And I understand Kendre Miller is a draft pick, but Kendre Miller, unfortunately, has opened this door with his injuries. And Jordan Mims says, hey, I like the guy, but I'm here to eat for myself. I got to make a name for myself. And here's an opportunity, and he's taking advantage of it. And I think he's doing a really good job of making himself noticed more and more often. Now, he's going to have to do that against the ones, against the starting defense. But hey, you got to start somewhere. All you can do is make plays against the defenders that are out there against you, and he's been doing that.
Yeah, I think Mims obviously has been running with the threes, so not going up against the starters per se, but he is somebody that spent the entire year on the practice squad last year with the Saints. He knows how they do things here. Although this is a new system, he is very familiar with his teammates and what the expectations are. Go from the running backs to the wide receivers. One of draft picks from last year in A.T. Perry came on at the end of the season, but he seems like he's been a little quiet throughout camp. And there have been other guys that have been flashing ahead of him, like Mason Tipton, who was undrafted out of Yale.
Well, that's the thing with young players. You're always looking for the consistency. Can you do it every day at a high level? And A.T. Perry is going to have to begin to do that because he's got some guys, not just Mason Tipton, who's sniffing on his heels, but Cedric Wilson's playing well. Stanley Morgan Jr. has an opportunity. Bub Means, there are guys who are chomping at the bit to get on the field. So, yeah, A.T. Perry made some fantastic plays when he was on the field at the end of last season. But that was 2, 3, 4 games maybe. And so a couple of splash plays in 3 or 4 games gets you a name. Now you got to do it every day, and not just the spectacular plays. We know he can make those plays. You got to be able to do the routine stuff. The routine stuff is what keeps you on the field, whether that's the comeback routes, whether that's the crossing routes, all the underneath stuff, not just the deep routes. It can't be flash and spectacular every time. It's just got to be grinding every day, and that's what we're seeing. Now, Mason Tipton is a guy who flashes every day because he can run so fast and he gets behind everybody. But Dennis Allen even said about him, he's going to have to show us the intermediate routes because we understand that he can run fast and get deep, but can he run the other routes? Those are the things that make coaches, you can get the notice on the splash play, but you can hold their attention when you do everything consistently across the board because you can't depend on the splash play. You can't depend on the one-handed catch and those kinds of things and the jump balls. You got to be able to do the routine things every day, and that's what we got to see out of A.T. Perry. He is phenomenal size-wise, and we've seen him make some plays that were just out of this world, but he's got to make the routine stuff, and we've seen him drop a couple of routine balls in practice. It's like, dude, you got to pick it up here. You got people nipping on your heels.
Yeah, it's a good point that you bring up about the routine plays because, yes, he's made some big plays here and there, obviously with his size and his ability to make some catches out of reach of a lot of the defenders. Going a little bit further back from the line with the linebackers, we've seen Willie Gay Jr. all over the field. Demario Davis looks like he's not missed a step, which is normal for him at, somebody that's, 34, 35? Like, it's kind of crazy to think about him continuing to improve. But then you have Pete Werner, who is just kind of silently doing work, making plays and breaking passes up. That linebacker battle, because they have 9 on the roster right now, is going to get interesting.
Well, I think those 3 are going to be on the field a little bit more than what maybe people think. I think their abilities are going to lend themselves to where the coaches are going to have to say, look, we got to put in schemes where these 3 guys are on the field at the same time, because they are 3 of our best 11 defenders, and they're going to be on the field, and they need to be on the field. And so if Willie Gay Jr. starts, it won't be because Pete Werner handed him the job, because Pete Werner is playing to a level to where you got to take it, and nobody's been able to take it in the past couple of years, and I don't know if Willie Gay is going to be able to take it, but Willie Gay might play so well to where he might warrant having to be on the field, and we've seen those packages so far. Now we got to see if there's going to be the base packages, because they're 2 linebackers who can cover. Willie Gay was talking about, just trying to learn how to tackle a little bit better just by studying Pete Werner. So you got 2 guys who can tackle, 2 guys who can run. You're not afraid to have them on tight ends. You're not necessarily afraid to have them on running backs. And that makes you a little bit better team, because you can play both of those guys in the box, or you can have a guy drift off. You can have a guy rush the passer. You can do a lot of things with them if you can get them all on the field at the same time. We know Demario Davis, if he's on the field, last year at times he was the Saints' best pass rusher. So he can give you that element also. So they've got a really good linebacking crew that I think can be on the field a lot of snaps together.
There's been a lot of fun battles to watch. There's been a lot of people that have been watching the practices, as well as Gail Benson has been here the past couple days. Dennis Lauscha also on hand. So even though the team is not in New Orleans, they came out still giving us some support here. Yeah,
and I mean, hey, they love this team. It's their team. And so you're going to come out and see what's going on, see what's happening, because they understand. I think they understand fully. They want to get this team back to New Orleans, back to its fans. But this is, unfortunately, a temporary situation. I say unfortunately, the weather's been fantastic. But this is a situation where you want to get the team back home to its fans. They're going to have a couple open practices when we do get back home. But this is New Orleans' team. And Saints fans want to be up close and personal with this team. The amount of people who were disappointed that these practices weren't open is probably a lot more than you would think, because there are a lot of Saints fans on the West Coast. And so those are the things that you notice about this team and notice about the fan base. That's a lot more widespread than you think. So, having ownership out here and the team president, Dennis Lauscha, out here is fantastic, because they're continually giving this team support.
Yeah, and if you want to, you can come out to the preseason games. Obviously, one in Arizona and then San Francisco, and then we'll be back in the Superdome to wrap up the preseason with Game 3 against the Titans on the 25th, if I am correct there. We were mentioning Willie Gay Jr. earlier. I was able to catch up with him after practice, but before I go to that interview, I want to set it up with what Dennis Allen had to say about him after practice on Monday.
From a big, physical, athletic linebacker that I know is going to come in and practice hard, work hard, compete, do all of those things. And so now I think the biggest thing for Willie is, continuing to get into the playbook and continuing to study and continuing to understand all the things that we're asking him to do. I think he's taken some steps forward from where he was in the spring. I think there's still some steps to be taken there. But I do think that each day he continues to get a little bit more comfortable and play a little bit better. So, I'm pleased with what I've seen, to this point. But now we're only into installs 1 and 2, so we really haven't even gotten into, our third down stuff or 2-minute or red zone or any of that type of stuff too. So, hopefully he'll continue to, be on top of everything as the volume of defense picks up a little bit.
Willie, you have been somebody that stood out through the first week of practice. You're flying around. You're in a lot of the base defense. How excited are you about being a big role here going forward?
I'm very excited. first of all. I just want to continue to grow as a player and as a linebacker here, and continue to learn his defense so that I can get even more reps, whatever that may be. Wherever coaches want me to play, I'll play. So to continue to learn and increase my role and to make the defense better any way that I can is a big thing for me.
With the week of camp behind you, what are some of the things that you're trying to tweak over this next couple weeks before we get to the regular season?
Tweak, really just the details, getting the details down packed, learning, like I say, learning the plays to a T. It's one thing to know them, it's another thing to know them to when the bullet's flying, it's second nature to you. So being able to be that type of player for this team, for this defense, and just ready to fly around and have some fun.
How hard has it been going up against this offense? It's a little different for people that have been here longer than you, but what have you seen from the way they're setting up and how hard it might be for defenses this year?
I'm going to just say it like this, man. It's definitely a different offense from what I've seen in past years from the Saints, and obviously with the new OC coming from San Fran, I played against those guys a few times in my day. I've only been in the league 5 years. I say my day like I'm old, but yeah, that's a great offense over there, obviously. So to bring a piece of it here is, I'm looking forward to the offense doing big things. So it's definitely a challenge for us on defense.
All right, I saw on social media that the linebackers got together, went out to dinner with Coach Hodges. How is that room coming together? It's
a great room. I love it. I ain't no kick on nobody, man, but it's probably the best room I ever had in my day of playing football, and since college. And like I say, everyone gets along. Obviously it's competition, but it's love. And from a coach to player, we have a great coach in Coach Hodges, and two great assistants in CO and Grizz. And then you got DeMario as the captain of the room, Pete as the second oldest guy that's been here. And I'm just following along, man. And it's a great room, and I'm glad to be a part of it.
I see Coach Hodges out here. I mean, he's loud. You can hear him. He's definitely hyping you up when you do something good, letting you know what you need to do if you're out of position. But what have you liked about working with him so far?
He's a player's coach, and however you want to put that. Like, he understands as a coach, everything, but you can also learn. And I'm not saying I know everything. It's just sometimes as a coach, you have to tone it back and be like, hey, what can I do better? And he's one of those coaches that, he listens to us, and he's like, okay, what do you think we need to do? And sometimes he has all the answers, sometimes he doesn't. And one thing for me personally, looking at a leader, like a coach, when as a leader, you can tone it back and be like, hey, I know I'm not perfect, and I know I can be better. It makes me respect you even more, and that's exactly what Coach Hodges is, and that's why he's such a great linebacker coach for our room, because we all work together.
Pads came on for the first time this week. Is it feeling a little more like real football out here?
Yeah, definitely. It's starting to feel a lot like real football, obviously, man. We want to get better, with the details, and, like Coach DA said last week, don't put the pads on and forget what you have to do. So, which sometimes happens because the bullets are flying now, so we want to put it all together, from the details to play calls and execute them at a physical level.
Yeah, Willie, thank you so much for joining us on the show. We look forward to seeing you on the field once the season gets started for sure.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the New Orleans Saints podcast. Join us 3 times per week on NewOrleansSaints.com, the Saints mobile app, or you can download the podcast on iTunes. We'll see you next time, right here on the New Orleans Saints podcast.